And now I want to bring in Kevin Griffiths. He was the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's Office of Communications from 2022 until just 10 days ago, and wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post titled, "Why I Left My Job Leading Public Health Messaging for the CDC." Thank you so much for joining us. Look, I want to stay on the subject of measles for a moment because you wrote in your op-ed, we haven't seen a public briefing from the CDC on this outbreak. So when the WHO expert says misinformation and disinformation, and I suppose you would add to that lack of information kills, what should people know?
Well, I mean, this is one of the things I wrote about in the op-ed, and one of the reasons why I think it's important that we now consider funding, standing up sources of information that can be an alternative potentially to HHS, because what we've seen from Secretary Kennedy, unfortunately, is a pattern of saying things that simply aren't accurate about measles, about avian flu, and that's concerning. And because we want to be sure that we're getting to the American people the best information that's available, evidence-based information about disease outbreaks, so that they can make the best decisions for themselves to protect their health and protect the health of their families.
I want to understand exactly what you're saying, that there should be some kind of private, I assume, information source for people because they can't trust, in your mind, the government information that's coming out?
Well, certainly, I don't think they can trust what's coming out from Secretary Kennedy right now. I think that the CDC so far, for the most part, has been able to resist attempts to try to include information that is categorically false. But that has not been the case for Secretary Kennedy. And the fact is that for most Americans, they know that he is the top health official in the country. They know the name really well. And so they may be, they may believe what he is saying. But I think what is important is for us to think about whether there are potential alternatives to that, whether we need to stand up organizations or other entities that might be able to provide alternatives that would make sure that we are providing evidence-based information to the American people so they have somewhere to go when they have questions, because I'm concerned that that's not going to be the case for HHS moving forward.
How much harder has jobs like the one you held for so long been made in the COVID and then the immediate post-COVID era? Look, information was given out by people, let's say, like Anthony Fauci, in real time as we were learning, and sometimes it got adjusted, sometimes it changed. We also got information like, drink bleach. And it did, for a lot of people, it made them wary of some of the information that they were getting. What do you do about that? What can be done about that? What should public health guidance look like in 2025?
Well, I mean, at CDC, we took a really careful look at how we performed during the course of the pandemic. And we made a lot of changes to try to improve that, including listening to critics who felt like we could have done better. And we made a lot of adjustments based on their input, frankly. And one of the other things that we've done during the Mpox outbreak, as well as recently with avian flu, is we've taken time to set up forums so that we can hear from people who are on the ground and are part of communities that are impacted by what's going on by an outbreak, so that we can adjust policies in real time, because we're trying to get as much information as possible and adjust on the fly there. And I think what has been true throughout all of those various outbreaks was that the people who were at CDC, at HHS, their singular focus was on trying to protect the health of the American people. There's a lot of great people still at CDC doing that every single day. But I think the big concern that we have right now is the leadership at the top at HHS, and whether or not that's the right leadership to try to help keep Americans safe.
And of course, the FDA's top vaccine scientist resigned, citing RFK Jr.'s misinformation and lies. That's not the kind of job you just fill. Like, there's not a ton of people out there with that skill set or that level of experience. And when we're talking about dealing with the next pandemic, do you believe there is a brain drain and that it will make us less likely to be both prepared and effective in dealing with it?
I mean, look, it's definitely concerning. I think it's also concerning that we've seen people put into positions across government where they're not, frankly, qualified to do those roles. So that should be concerning to everyone as well. Again, it was just one of the reasons we're talking about the potential necessity of having some type of alternate source of information for people other than the federal government. So, I think it's incumbent upon the people at HHS to make the right decision there, to get somebody in there who's experienced and knows what they're doing. But again, I have concerns about that, doubts about whether that's going to happen.
Kevin Griffiths, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time and for writing the op-ed.